was around when Jesus Christ had his moment of doubt and pain.
What if I told you that some of the most important moments in rock history didn't happen on a stage?
Come back to you. Sing with me, symphony, yeah, symphony.
They happened in a studio at 2 in the morning when someone played the wrong chord and accidentally got it right.
Stop in the street. Looks any different to me.
Or in a rehearsal room where a throwaway riff turned into something nobody could stop humming. Classic rock has this reputation for being larger than life, and it was. But the stories behind these songs are something else entirely. They're messier than you think, more accidental, more human. Today we're going through 15 classic rock songs that stopped people in their tracks. The first time they heard them, not just hits, songs that changed the way people understood what rock music could actually do. The stories behind them are just as good as the music. Let's get into it. Smoke on the Water. Here's something most people don't know about the most recognizable guitar riff in rock history. It wasn't crafted, it wasn't labored over. Deep Purple were in Montreux, Switzerland, booked to record at the casino there, when the building caught fire during a Frank Zappa concert. They watched the whole thing burn from across the lake, smoke rising over the water. Flames reflected on the surface. The next morning, they wrote a song about exactly what they'd seen. The riff was the first thing guitarist Ritchie Blackmore played when they set up in a new location. Nobody treated it like a masterpiece in the moment. It was just a description of something that happened. And somehow, that became the first thing every beginner guitarist learns to this day. Hotel California. Nobody in the band could agree on what this song was actually about, and that wasn't an accident. The Eagles were at the peak of their commercial power in 1977.
Welcome to the Hotel California.
But privately, the whole thing was coming apart, tension between members, exhaustion from touring, and a growing sense that the machine they'd built was consuming them. Hotel California was their attempt to put all of that into music without saying any of it directly. The imagery was deliberately open. The ending was deliberately unresolved. They wanted every listener to bring something personal to it, and that's exactly what happened. Decades later, people are still debating the meaning. That's not a flaw in the song. That's the whole design. The best songs don't give you answers. They give you a mirror. Born to Run. Bruce Springsteen spent 6 months on this single song. 6 months of rebuilding it from scratch, scrapping takes, starting over, chasing a sound he could hear in his head but couldn't quite get onto tape. His label was losing patience. His career was genuinely on the line.
Baby, we were born to run.
He knew this was his last real shot at breaking through, and that knowledge is audible in every single second of the recording. The urgency isn't performed. It's real. The desperation of a young man trying to escape a life that feels too small. That's not just the lyrical theme, that's the emotional reality of the recording sessions themselves. And when it finally came together, it didn't just save his career, it announced one of the greatest careers in American music. Whole Lotta Love. Led Zeppelin were assembling their second album at extraordinary speed, pulling from every influence they had, and not always being careful about where those influences came from. Willie Dixon had written a song called Bring It On Home, and when he heard Whole Lotta Love, he recognized something. The lawsuit that followed lasted years and eventually led to a settlement. But here's the thing, none of that legal chaos touched the song's power. The moment that riff hits, none of the backstory matters. It's one of the most physical sounds in rock history, something you feel before you process it. Rock and roll has always been a music built on borrowing, on taking something and transforming it into something new. Led Zeppelin just did it louder than almost anyone else. Go Your Own Way. Lindsey Buckingham wrote this song directly for Stevie Nicks, not about her at her. They had just ended their relationship, and both of them had to keep showing up to the same studio, working on the same album, standing in the same room day after day. Nicks hated the lyrics. She felt they misrepresented her, and she asked, more than once, for them to be changed. Buckingham refused every time, and so the song stayed exactly as he wrote it, raw and pointed and completely unfiltered. What makes this remarkable is that the tension between them didn't destroy the recording. It charged it. Every note carries the weight of two people who loved each other and couldn't make it work. That's not a performance, that's just the truth. Stairway to Heaven. Jimmy Page wrote the chord progression in a single night at Headley Grange, a remote country house in Hampshire where the band often retreated to write. There were no deadlines, no label pressure, no commercial expectations, just four musicians with complete creative freedom and a tape machine running.
And she's buying the stairway to heaven.
Robert Plant wrote most of the lyrics on the spot in the studio, almost in a trance by his own description, surprising even himself with what came out. Nobody in that room was trying to write the greatest rock song ever made. They were just following the music wherever it went, and it went somewhere nobody had been before. The most played song in FM radio history was never even released as a single. The world found it anyway. Bohemian Rhapsody. Every single person at the record label said this song was unreleasable. 6 minutes long, no conventional chorus, a structure that moved through ballad, opera, and hard rock, like it was three completely different songs stitched together.
I'm just a poor boy. I need no sympathy.
Radio had rules, and this broke all of them simultaneously. Freddie Mercury didn't argue. He didn't fight with the label in boardrooms. Instead, he gave an advance copy to a DJ friend named Kenny Everett, who started playing it on his show almost immediately. The listener's response was so instant and so overwhelming that the label had no choice. Within weeks, it was #1. Bohemian Rhapsody went on to become one of the best-selling singles in history. The rules of radio exist for a reason, but the songs that break them are the ones nobody ever forgets. Purple Haze. Jimi Hendrix wrote this song based on a dream. He described walking underwater, a purple haze surrounding everything. And that surreal image became the foundation of one of the most electrifying songs ever recorded. At the time, he was still building his reputation in the UK, largely unknown back home in the United States. But the guitar tone on this recording did something beyond the writing itself. A piece of equipment malfunctioning during the session created a distortion sound that nobody had heard before, raw, almost violent, impossible to ignore. Engineers would spend decades trying to recreate it. That accident became one of the most imitated guitar sounds in the history of rock music. Sometimes the best sounds are the ones that weren't planned, the ones that happen when something goes slightly wrong. Layla. Eric Clapton wrote this song about a woman who didn't love him back. That woman was Pattie Boyd, who was at the time married to his best friend George Harrison. Clapton was consumed by it, and that obsession poured directly into the recording. But the version you know isn't just Clapton's story. The famous piano outro that closes the song wasn't written by him at all. It came from Duane Allman, who improvised it in the studio during what was supposed to be a straightforward session. That outro transformed the song from a rock track into something genuinely orchestral. Years later, Clapton and Boyd did get together, but the song had already captured the feeling before any of that happened. The most powerful emotions make the most powerful music, even the ones that hurt. Dream On. Steven Tyler wrote the melody for this song as a teenager. Years before Aerosmith existed, he played it alone, developed it slowly, kept returning to it without any real expectation that it would ever become anything.
Now the things come back to you.
When the band finally recorded it, the label didn't want to release it as a single. Too slow, too long, too different from what rock radio was playing. They released it anyway, and it barely charted. And then, 3 years later, they released it again. This time it cracked the top 10. The song hadn't changed. The world had just caught up to it. That's the thing about Dream On that most people miss. It's not just a song about perseverance. The story of how it reached people is itself a demonstration of exactly that. Some things just need time. Sympathy for the Devil. This song started as a gentle acoustic folk ballad. If you heard the original demo, you would not recognize it.
I I watch with glee while your kings and queens fall for tender days.
The Rolling Stones were being filmed by Jean-Luc Godard during the recording sessions, and those cameras captured something remarkable, a song completely transforming itself in real time. The samba rhythm that defines the final version wasn't in anyone's plan. It emerged through hours of live experimentation, the band pulling the track apart and rebuilding it over and over while Godard's crew filmed every moment. What came out the other side was something none of them had intended when they walked in. Keith Richards has said the song found its own identity almost independently of the band. The best creative decisions are sometimes the ones you stumble into completely by accident. Freebird. The extended guitar solo that defines this song was never supposed to be that long. Lynyrd Skynyrd were playing it live and the crowd kept responding, so they kept going. What had been a 3-minute song on the album stretched to 8 minutes in concert, and sometimes further than that. The audience was essentially writing the final version of the song in real time, night after night, through sheer force of reaction. The band followed where the crowd took them, and what came out of that process became one of the most iconic live rock experiences ever recorded. There's something genuinely democratic about that story. Most songs get handed to an audience in finished form. Freebird is one of the rare ones where the audience handed something back. Comfortably Numb. Roger Waters and David Gilmour were barely speaking when they made this. The wall sessions were among the most miserable in rock history. The band was fracturing, the budget was out of control, and the personal tension between members had reached a point that made basic communication difficult. They submitted their parts almost separately, like two people working on the same project without being in the same room. Inside all of that, Gilmour recorded 2 guitar solos that are widely considered among the greatest ever committed to tape. The second one, especially that long, aching, completely unhurried climb, has moved people to tears for decades. 2 men who could barely stand to be in the same room produced something that has comforted millions of people through their darkest moments. That contrast is almost impossible to explain rationally. Sometimes the most broken places produce the most beautiful things. This song is proof of that every single time you hear it. Won't get fooled again. Pete Townshend wrote this as a warning, a deeply cynical statement about political revolution and how it always circles back to the same result. New faces, same structures, same betrayals. He intended it as a bleak observation, not a rallying cry. And then the world heard it differently. Audiences grabbed onto that final scream, that thundering synthesizer, that explosive energy, and turned it into an anthem. Townshend was genuinely troubled by that reaction. He had meant something almost opposite to what people were feeling when they pumped their fists to it. He wanted people to think, not cheer. But that's the thing about songs that connect at a deep level. They escape their creator's intentions completely and take on a life of their own. Once a song is out in the world, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to whoever needs it most, whatever that means to them. Smells Like Teen Spirit? Nobody at the label knew what to do with it. Nirvana had recorded something that sounded like it was simultaneously falling apart and perfectly constructed, and the A&R people kept asking if they wanted to clean it up, tighten it, make it more radio-friendly. Kurt Cobain wasn't interested. He'd written the riff as a deliberate attempt to sound like the Pixies, which he later admitted openly and without embarrassment, because his instinct was to steal from the best and then break something in the process of stealing it. The music video cost almost nothing. The performance was barely a performance, and when it hit MTV, it didn't just chart. It ended an entire era of rock music and started a new one within about 3 weeks. Cobain spent the rest of his life uncomfortable with what that meant. He wanted to make noise, not movements. But some songs are bigger than what their writers intended, bigger than any single moment in time. Smells Like Teen Spirit was supposed to be a punk song. It became a generation's entire autobiography. These songs didn't follow the rules. They came from accidents, arguments, obsessions, and moments nobody planned for. And that's exactly why you still remember the first time you heard every single one of them. If you enjoyed this one, hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next one.